Welcome everyone to tonight's Thursday talk, and tonight's topic is a very interesting topic, understanding karma. And I would really encourage all of you to ask all your questions about karma, because karma is such a deep topic and there are so many layers to that topic. And I'm sure Sister Judy will actually um, uh, take us through those, deep-rooted meaning and understanding karma. And a very warm welcome from Peace Village Learning and Retreat Center of the Brahma Kumaris, where Sister Judy and myself, Kanupriya, reside. Sister Judy, for those of you who are not familiar with her, she has been studying meditation for 30 years, and out of those 30 years, over 25 years, she has been with the Brahma Kumaris. And prior to this, she has worked in the media and communications, and also taught English, college English. Her interest is in cultivating inner states that amplify our capacity to live and serve in these times. So you will be able to join, to ask your questions via chat box at any point of time, and we'll take them through whenever the time is right. This talk is also live on the Brahma Kumaris USA channel, as well as our Manhattan Facebook, Peace Village Facebook, and YouTube channels as well. If you want to watch recordings later on, it is available on these social media platforms. So very warm welcome, Sister Judy, and we are eager to hear from you.
Thank you, Kanapriya. I probably made you nervous by disappearing a minute ago, right? so, so hello, good evening, welcome. I'm glad we're here tonight together. I wish we were in the room together. That would make it so much more fun. If we had that nice fireplace that Kanu has there, if we were gathered around it and talking about karma. Um, Karma is a very complex subject. So I'm going to encourage you to ask questions throughout. I don't mind stopping to chat with you about karma because it's really, it's one of those subjects that no matter where you start, there's a lot to say and you can go in a lot of directions. So I'm going to take you on a bit of a tour, but if you want to head off in a new direction, you just tell me. So, first, let's get simple. Karma. Karma is the Hindi word for action. And we've all heard the principle that for every action, there is a reaction equal in velocity and opposite in direction. And you've seen those balls hanging from the strings where you let go of one and the other one moves. And have you seen those toys that explain karma? So that's the idea that whatever goes around comes around. Whatever we send out comes back to us. And this is a fundamental principle of the universe. If you look around, you see it in action everywhere. But what we're interested in is seeing it in action in our lives. So if you put it really simply, if you put out joy, you get back joy. If you put out sorrow, you get back sorrow. You put out anger, you get back anger. That's the simple way to think about it. But the thing is, it doesn't always come back to you like that, right? It doesn't always come immediately back to you, this response. So I like to think of karma as kind of a way of healing. So the soul and the universe wants to be whole. If you cut your knee, the body immediately starts healing, right? It's the soul that's healing through the body. And so immediately blood rushes to the site, and then it looks red and kind of annoyed, and then you get a scab on it. And if you didn't know what was happening, you could be quite alarmed what was going on with your knee. But actually, what's happening is your body is making you whole again. And it's doing it immediately. It sets that in motion immediately. It's the same with karma. So the soul is originally whole. And when through our actions we make mistakes and get out of sync with the wholeness of the soul, immediately we begin to get feedback about that so we can go back and become whole again. So I don't think of it as punishing. I think of it as really a way to become whole again. So, what mostly we hear people talk about good karmas and bad karmas. So, what do they mean when they say that? So, when people talk about good karmas, depending on the domain it's in, so if you're talking about wealth, so good karmas means if you've got good karmas in wealth or a good karmic account in wealth, you have prosperity. Money comes to you easily. You don't just have money in the bank, you have the ability to generate money or wealth or goods around you. If you have bad karmas in wealth, you are always struggling with money. You run out of money, you get into debt, you overextend, your credit cards are run up. Um, you make loans to the wrong people, they don't pay you back, right? All of that is the bad end of karmic account in wealth. There's this equation in every domain of our lives. So you think about health, the body. If you have good karmic accounts in health, you are really resilient. You don't get sick very often. You have a lot of energy. If you had bad karmic accounts in health, you struggle a lot through the body. You have things that go wrong. You're always kind of having to fix the body. And the one that everybody gets all interested in and worked up about, all of us, is relationships, right? So when we have good karmas in relationships, we are surrounded with happy relationships. Our parents love us, we love them. Our kids love us, we love them. Our siblings love us, we love them. All of our employees think we're wonderful. Everyone we meet thinks we're wonderful. When we don't have good karmic relationships, then we have all kinds of complications in our relationships. And we'll talk a little bit more about relationships later. So that's what we mean when we talk about karmic accounts. Now, if you think about this, the life you're living now is the script that you wrote in the past. And the life you're living now is also writing a script for the future. Brian, I love seeing the dog nose come into your frame there. So, it's really important to be aware of what we're doing now, what actions we're taking now that are writing a script that we're going to have to live with. Now, when we talk about karma, people will talk about fortune, right? They think of karma in terms of fortune. So they might say, she's lucky in love, or he's got away with money, or they're very resilient. The family's very resilient. These are ways of talking about fortune, and fortune has everything to do with karma. It looks like luck, right? Gosh, she's just lucky. Things just go her way. But actually, it's really not luck in the way we sometimes think of luck, just accidents. It's actually the residual effect of benevolent action in the past. Now, I don't want to oversimplify it because none of us goes through life in isolation. right? So these karmic accounts we have, we co-create them with others. So it's not just a straight line. I do this and this comes back to me, but I'm giving you kind of the essence here. So, um, so yes, the soul's getting feedback. And what the soul's getting feedback about is whether it is in alignment with it, the true self, or it's not in alignment with the true self. So, who is the true self? So, I'm going to presume that everyone who's in this conversation tonight is somewhere on a spiritual path. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be in this conversation. So, I'm going to speak with you about it in spiritual terms. So, the true self is the eternal self, the soul, the light that sits behind the eyes and that has an eternal existence. Now, the true self in its original state is beautiful. It's completely pure, completely peaceful, loving, kind, compassionate, patient, generous, charitable. I mean, the true self is lovely. The closest I can think is when you look at a little 1-year-old, how pure and innocent and sweet they are. It's like that. The true self is that beautiful in its original nature. And so when we get out of alignment with that true self, we begin to get signals. And those signals are our karmic accounts sort of speaking with us. So when you think about the actions you take, where do they start? What makes you what makes you do a good thing and what makes you do a bad thing? Right? What makes you say something really loving and kind to someone and what makes you snap at somebody or tell them off or some of these terrible things we read about in the paper? What makes that happen? So the seed of action is thought. So the reason that the true self is so beautiful is that in the true self, the mind is like a temple. It's really pure and beautiful. So every thought that comes out of the mind is a beautiful thought, a charitable thought, a generous thought. Now, as we move through time, and this is true with every little baby that grows up, but it's true with us through time, we get weaker, we get influenced. And as the soul gets influenced and weakens, then the quality of the mind begins to change. No longer a beautiful temple. It becomes a kind of maybe like a drugstore, or maybe like um, a bus stop. I mean, it depends on what you allow to go on in your mind, right? So it goes from being this perfect, beautiful place. And as you get influenced by other things and attracted by other things, the quality of the mind changes. You're distracted. You're pulled by things. You're pulled by spectacle. You're pulled by attraction. You're pulled by um, uh, feeling good, physical sensations instead of more elevated sensations. And so as the quality of the mind changes and as the quality of the heart changes, the quality of the thoughts that come out of the mind also changes. And then you take an action based on that thought. So we know the kinds of thoughts that get us in trouble, right? Attachment gets us in trouble. Lust gets us in trouble. Greed, anger, ego. These are all the kinds of thoughts that cause us to create mistakes. And so, as those kinds of thoughts come into the mind, and then those words come out of our mouth, or we take these actions connected with it, then we have what we call these negative karmic accounts. Make sense so far? Okay. So the best, I was trying to think of some great example of karmic accounts that we could kind of look at. And the best one I can think of is Scrooge. So Charles Dickens gave us this great karmic story, right? So here's this business guy, and actually we see him at a certain point in the Scrooge movies and plays. We see that actually as a young man, he was an okay guy. You know, he had a girlfriend and he was doing well. And then suddenly he became too absorbed in business and too absorbed with money. And the girlfriend leaves him and he becomes this kind of obsessed businessman. So what happens? So he when we meet him in the movie, and I'm thinking of the one with George C. Scott, but you can think of your own favorite rendition of this movie. So what happens in this movie when we meet him is that he's actually a real jerk, right? I mean, he's got this guy working for him. He's a sweetheart who has this little crippled child at home, and he underpays him. He doesn't give him any time off, even Christmas Eve. And he doesn't even want him to turn the light on. He wants him to work by this dim light. And so Bob Cratchit leaves for the night. He goes to bed, and we know that the first thing that happens is here comes his partner, Jacob Marley, in the form of a ghost, and he's going to wake him up. So we get three ghosts, right? We get the ghost of Christmas past, and he gets to look at what a great guy he was as a young man, and then what happened to him, how he blew it with this young woman. His heart was too hard already, and then he just becomes obsessed. So he wakes up that first morning and he's a little disturbed, but he's not that bothered. He was annoyed, a little bit disturbed, but he's okay. The next night, the second ghost comes, the ghost of Christmas present, and this ghost takes him to see the Cratchit family. And he hears them saying unkind things about Scrooge, and Bob Cratchit defends him, and he sees this little kid, and he begins to get extremely uncomfortable. He's beginning to see that things are really off. And in fact, it's so bad he doesn't want to go to bed that night. But he goes to bed that night, and when he goes to sleep, then he's awakened by this third ghost, the ghost of Christmas future. And this is where the real bad news comes, right? He sees himself as he's died, and no one in the town cares, and they don't miss him, and no one really is going to come to his funeral, and they're not saying very nice things about him. And still, poor Bob Cratchit's still sticking up for him. So when he awakens in the morning, he's hoping against hope that he's still got a chance. And he does. And so what does he do at that point? He reverses his karmic actions from the past. So he is feeling grateful. He is feeling charitable. Send a big goose over to the Cratchit's house, and he brings gifts and he brings money. And what he's doing is he's so grateful, he's trying to reverse the karmic account from before. So, and actually, you could probably say that all great dramas are actually karmic stories, right? Macbeth, etc., etc. They're all stories of souls who kind of gone off, and now they're trying to find their way back. So this is our story. I mean, all of them are our story in some way. And it depends, each of us has a different script. So each of us is living a different thing. I can probably guess that there's none of us sitting here tonight who don't have something going on in our lives that is causing some heaviness or some distraction. I don't know anybody at this point who doesn't have something going on that's causing them some heaviness. In fact, one way to think about the world situation is to think that what it is the collective karmic accounts of 7 billion people, all tangled up and playing out, which is why it's kind of a sad story at this time, because we've gotten quite entangled. We've gotten quite, distracted and filled with sorrow and burdened. So, and it's just to make it a little more personal, rather than, I mean, there is the big world, but then there's your own life. And the situations, and let's take relationships for a minute. So with relationships, we have two kinds of karmic relationships. One is a karmic relationship. The word in Hindi, karma samban, which just means that when you meet someone, whether it's your child for the first time or someone else that's important in your life, it's not unusual to feel like this is someone I already know. I get along so well with this person. We just clicked. I mean, we're just like we were instant friends. So that kind of connection. And that kind of connection is beneficial. It's not complicated. The other kind of karmic connection is a karmic bondage. And with karmic bondages, they're just push, pull, push, pull. You try to make that one happy, they don't get happy. You try to leave, they're sad. They try to leave, you're sad. I mean, it's just, you can't live with them, can't live without them, right? Sometimes we are related to them. Often we are related to them. Sometimes we married them. Sometimes they're our landlords. Sometimes they're our bosses. But these relationships are just really charged. And they often have to do with responsibility and expectation. So between a parent and a child, I've heard the parent say, I did everything for her, and look at how ungrateful she is. She's not helping us now. And the child says, you constantly expect me to be there. How am I supposed to live my life? Right, back and forth. Or you have relationships where one of the people is kind of a rescuing type. They like to help people. The other one is helpless. They're a perfect match, right? The one who wants to rescue is always rescuing. The one who's always helpless wants to be helpless, and there they are. But no one is free. You see, in karmic relationships, everyone's free. In karmic bondages, no one is free. And then there's patterns of blaming. If it weren't for you, I would have been able to do whatever, right? You see all of these tugs, these pulls, these expectations, and these responsibilities. They're very burdensome. They really distract us. And if you've got a relationship like this in your life, I suspect you think about it a lot. And I suspect you are torn between, do I call this person because I'm really drawn to call them? And if you give in and call them, you realize what a bad idea that was, because now you're in this conversation with this person that was completely predictable, right? So round and round and round we go. So what do we do about this? What do we do about being in these karmic bondages? So I spoke with my teacher, Dadi Janki, about this. Some of you might know Dadi. Dadi left the body a year ago at 104. And I chatted with her about karmic bondages and asked her to explain it. And she said, well, the reason for bondages is desire. She said, live in the world and have relationships, but don't have bondages. She said, when you look at bondages, you see something as your responsibility. So you feel responsible to give happiness. There is the experience that no matter how much you try to make them happy, they're never satisfied. When one leaves, the other one has sorrow. So she said, what we want is to be able to stabilize the self and not take sorrow. I need to fill myself with power and love and share from that accumulation. Now, that's really a little bit of a secret. Um, this business about sharing from overflow. But I'll come back to that in a minute. So how do we change our fortune? We change our fortune by changing our karmas. We change our fortune by changing our actions. And how do we change our actions? Remember that temple that you turned into a bus stop? Okay, you change your actions by changing your thoughts. And you change your thoughts by purifying your mind. I don't want to make this sound like there's 3 tips, and at the end of this half hour, you are going to be able to walk out and do this. But I also don't want, I also want to say it's completely possible. People change all the time. But you really have to understand the spiritual machinery. So life is an inside out proposition. This is why you're interested in spirituality. This is why you're meditating. You wouldn't be here tonight if you're not meditating in some way. You may not be a daily meditator, but you are definitely looking at your inner life because you understand on some level that your outer life is a reflection of your inner life. And that if you don't change your inner life, your outer life is going to continue to be troubling. So we have to look at the quality of our thoughts. Now, this is a little bit like musical chairs. You know how as a kid you're running around these chairs and then someone stops the music and you run for a chair and grab it. So you have to find ways to catch yourself and notice what is going on in your mind. Actually, I had an example of this when I lived in Chicago many years ago, and I had this bad pattern where I always felt I was going to be out of money. It had nothing to do with how much money was in the bank. I had plenty of money in the bank, but I was sure I was going to run out of money any minute. So this therapist said to me, okay, we're going to do rapid eye movement therapy. I'm going to move my pencil around. You follow it with your eyes. And when I stop, you tell me what you're thinking. So we did this for like 45 minutes. And it's amazing when suddenly he stopped what I would be thinking. It didn't have anything to do with money as near as I could tell, but the mind, is just rolling along with these thoughts. So that's what you have to do for yourself. You have to notice what is going on in your mind. Now, thoughts are on a spectrum. So at the low end of thoughts are negative thoughts, thoughts of hate, thoughts of dislike, thoughts of jealousy, thoughts of fear, all of those kinds of thoughts, negative thoughts. Those thoughts will make you heavy. They will shrink your life and they will cause you to take wrong action. If you go up a notch, you go to what we call waste thoughts. Waste thoughts are just the idle. You're flipping through catalogs, you're looking for what to buy, you're chatting, staring out the window, you're just kind of filling time. Right? They're not bad thoughts, but there's nothing beneficial in them. And they don't produce any benevolent action either, waste thoughts. So then you go up the spectrum another notch. Now you get to positive thoughts. So positive thoughts are joy, contentment, awe, gratitude, appreciation, right? These are positive thoughts. Positive thoughts will produce benevolent action. So if you're going to change your karmas, you're going to change your fortune by changing your karmas. You're going to change your karmas by changing your thoughts. So the kind of thoughts you want to have more of are these positive thoughts. Now, there is a level of thought above positive thoughts that are called elevated thoughts. And these are thoughts of divinity. These are thoughts of God. These are thoughts of your eternal self, right? So, what you are doing as you learn to go inside, and this is your meditation practice, right? This is why you meditate, so you can get facile in your inner world. So, as you go inside, you're noticing the quality of thoughts that you're having, and you're shifting that quality of thought. You know, I'm back to Dadi Janki. When she turned 90, someone and I wrote a book about her in her honor. And we interviewed the president of India about her, and he said, that Dadi Janki, she weeds her mind like a garden. That's the point, right? You look in your mind, you see that you're having some low level thought, you're jealous, you're angry, whatever, you pull it out like it's a weed in the garden of your mind and return yourself to this place of a more powerful thought, a more positive thought, a more loving, generative thought. And it's a little bit the same with your feelings because the thoughts and the feelings travel together. So a positive thought will travel with a generous feeling. They're kind of braided. So you can also look at your heart. You know, whenever you really want to know what's true for you, check your heart. Your heart will never lie to you. Even if it's bad news in your heart, even if your heart has sorrow in it, or even if your heart has fear in it, you'll see the fear and you'll see the sorrow, and then you'll know you need to take action. And you know, I would just say, although we don't have time for it today, you can clean your heart. You don't have to walk around with every memory, every bad thing that ever happened to you, every disappointment stored away in your heart and your memory track. You don't have to live that way. You know, it's because we haven't done that work that we have such complications around us in the world. But so this business of changing your fortune has to do with going inside. You're looking at your mind. You want it to be that temple. You want it to be that pure. You want it to produce that quality of thought. You're looking at your heart. You want your heart to hold those kinds of things. So let me just pause and ask you, are you tracking? Is this making sense to you? Are there questions? Let me check here in the chat.
Yes, there are a couple of questions. Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. Are we born into families out of karmic bondages? Often. Sometimes it's just karmic relationships, but often there are karmic bondages in families. So we get to practice right away. That's so lucky. Can we say that COVID is our collective karmic account? Well, this is a really good question, and I don't want to give you a yes or no here, but I would say that I would say this, that atmospheres attract and sustain certain things. Think of your immune system. The better your immune system, the less a sickness stays with you, right? Now move it out to the atmosphere and society. The more pure and loving the atmosphere and society is, the less ugly things stay in it. Whether it's racism or whether it's misogyny or whether it's COVID. So purifying our thoughts eventually is purifying the atmosphere and making it not conducive to many, many things. So I don't want to say definitely COVID is our karmic account, but I think there is a connection here. Uh, how does nature versus nurture play into the karmic account? Okay, I think I understand your question. Um, so sometimes we say, well, he's just like his dad, right? He was born with all of his dad's traits and he's just like his dad. Um, my personal take is that it's much more, see, the soul isn't a blank CD when it arrives. I think we used to think that we get this little blank CD and we program it to with good things and it becomes a good person. The soul doesn't arrive that way. It doesn't arrive ready as a writable disc. The soul arrives with lots of history and memories and sanskars and a lot of patterns and tendencies. You know that if you've ever raised a child, they reveal themselves to you, right? I mean, as they grow up, you can see who they are in there. They show you who they already are. They are also affected by the environment that they're in. There also are genetic tendencies and all that, but the soul arrives with a history, and you are then a part of making the new history. So I don't know, that may not be completely satisfying, but okay, I think we're there, right? Is that it? Yeah. Okay. Uh, do the negative karmas of others affect us? Well, okay, so this is up to you. The stronger we are, the less influenced we are by things around us. The weaker we are, the more influenced we are by things around us. When we talk about being spiritually powerful, we're talking about being able to be around many different influences and not be influenced. Our intention as people with a spiritual focus is to be the influencer. We want to bring our good intentions, our purity, our peace, our love, etc., and we want that to be the influence. If we're pulled off, I mean, right now there are many negative influences in the world. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. There is a virus of fear and anxiety. That's a bigger pandemic than COVID. The World Health Organization tells us that depression is the greatest illness in the world. Depression has a vibration, right? Anything the soul thinks and feels creates a vibrational field around it. So if everybody is afraid, then we live in a climate of fear. If everyone is sad or if everyone is anxious, then that feeds into the atmosphere. So when you walk out into the atmosphere, it's very likely that you are affected, which is why you have a meditation practice. You know, at this point, I have doubled the time that I meditate. I used to meditate 45 minutes in the morning and a half an hour at night. Now I meditate an hour and a half in the morning and an hour at night, and it's not enough. Because we have to strengthen our ability to hold those thoughts I was describing to you, those positive and elevated thoughts. So if someone very negative is coming at me, how well do I hold a charitable thought or a generous thought? You know, the way we get in trouble with karma is that somebody says something to us and we react, right? Somebody yells at us and we yell back. Somebody throws a rock at us, we throw a rock back. And that's how we perpetuate these karmic patterns. So if we want to change the karmic pattern, we have to be able to do something other than the knee-jerk reaction back to the person. See, our knee-jerk reaction is that influence. They're angry. You want to see anger? Let me show you anger, right? That kind of a response. But if somebody can come at us with some negative thought or feeling, and we can respond with, "You're having a bad day. Can I get you a cup of water? Do you want to sit down?" In other words, if we can come back with something other than that same reaction, then we've made a little step towards changing our karmic account, changing our fortune. As long as we're reacting under the influence of what they're doing, we're just deepening that trough that is our karmic pattern. How do we respond to events in our life in terms of learning from our experiences and letting things go? How do we let things go in terms of reconciling our karmic accounts? Well, that's kind of what we're talking about. So all of us have patterns of our personality, called sanskars. So we may have a pattern of control, or we may have a pattern of, we talked about them before, right? A pattern of rescuing or whatever. So when we act from that pattern, we're just deepening our pattern. We want to act from our elevated awareness. That's how we change our karma. And each time we do that, we loosen the grip that pattern, that sanskar has on us. So the aim through your meditation practice is to have a stock of pure thoughts, for example, to have a stock of positive thoughts, to be prepared to respond in a different way. And once you begin to get the hang of it, you begin to realize that, yeah, this will change everything. This will turn everything around. So, okay. Are we working with our karmic accounts with these people we have the push and pull relationship with for a reason? And how do we know how not to be so attached? Attachment is the final lesson in the Bhagavad Gita. This is the ultimate, being conquerors of attachment. That's what happens to us. We get attached to things. First, we get attracted, and then we get attached, and then we get entangled. And then we wonder why we're stuck. So I think with all of this, what you're trying to do is first, you're trying to stay awake. You're trying to stay aware of what this dynamic is that's going on in the world. Right now in the world, there are two energies at work. There is a very powerful negative, downward, descending, I would call it, energy. It's very visible. You can see it everywhere. But there is also a more powerful but less visible ascending energy. And this energy is the energy of the source energy, God's energy, the divine energy that is active in the world at this time. It's much more subtle than the other one. This descending energy is pretty gross. It's loud, it's noisy, it's connected with all kinds of visible things. The ascending energy is much more subtle. But you, as the soul, as you develop this discernment that comes with your meditation practice, you realize you have a choice as to which energy to align yourself with. Each time you make a choice, for example, if you choose anger, now you've aligned with the descending energy, and the field of descending energy enlarges a little bit. But if you choose patience and understanding, you must be having a bad day. This isn't who you really are. Come on, let's go for a walk. Now you've aligned with the ascending energy, and that field enlarges. This is what's going on a micro level inside of each of us, and it's what's going on a macro level in the world. Both of these energies. And so when you look at your own karmic accounts, the easiest way to look at your karmic accounts is, where is the pain? Right? Where is it in your life that you have pain? Is it money? Is it body? Is it people? Is it what? Because that's the place where you've got the attachment. That's where you're stuck. That's where the negative thoughts are driving your actions, the negative patterns. So that's what you want to change. And you have to be fearless about this. This is the most important thing you'll pay attention to right now. It's more important than your next job. It's more important than anything else, is your ability to look inside and see what is going on inside of you. It's a very charged atmosphere right now. All of us are being bombarded with these dark energies, right? These energies, these influences, they're very present right now. But I would also say to you that the presence of the divine is really strong right now. But you have to calibrate, right? You have to refine what you're listening to. I mean, there's a lot of things that I'm changing in my own life so I can make sure I can always pick up that vibe. I used to be in media. I don't absorb very much media anymore. I cruise down the headlines in the New York Times, cruise down the headlines in National Public Radio, make sure I'm aware if there's a volcano in the Caribbean. I want to send good vibes to those people. But I don't pour over every Derek Chauvin move and every time a policeman shoots some black child. I don't read those stories. I don't pour over those. I don't torment myself with people who are hard on me. I give them a lot of love and I give them a fair amount of distance. Because if your intention is to attune to this more refined energy, you have to really focus on that. I mean, I sometimes think if there were a flute player standing in Times Square, not Times Square today, Times Square under normal circumstances, playing his flute over at the corner, and you walk into Times Square and there's taxis honking and there's lights blinking and there's people trying to sell you things, what are the chances you're going to hear this flute player? He's playing a beautiful song right there on the corner, maybe the song that you need the most, but there is so much going on that you probably won't even hear it. So, what are the efforts we need to make so that we can refine our listening and refine our sensing? You know, when we're that attuned, we know what's going on inside someone else. They don't need to tell us. We can see the sorrow in their eyes. We can see that they're lonely. We can feel that they're afraid. And we can extend ourselves. That's what charitable action is. Actually, charitable action is simply holding that positive or elevated thought, just holding it. That alone, there's a vibration that comes off of that thought. If you then open your mouth or extend yourself personally from that space that you're in, you've just written something beautiful in your script for the future. And the saying is that when you spontaneously give, I mean, it's one thing to have a planned gift at the end of the year. Here's the organizations I'm going to write a check to. That's a good thing. But if you spontaneously give to someone who's in need, then you get a lovely chapter in your script. That's considered extremely charitable action. But you can only do that if your perception is so refined that you can pick up how they're feeling. And that instead of rushing in to rescue them or whatever, you hold in that space and hold a loving thought for them. and wait to sense what the right move is. The right move isn't always rushing in. It's not always saying something. It's not always taking a big action. Sometimes people just need you to see them, just to hear them. Sometimes that is really the charitable action. So, your meditation practice is really what's allowing you to become more and more refined in your perception, more aware of the quality of thoughts and feelings inside, more able to make a choice for the ascending energy, and thereby change your karmic fortune. Let me see here. I don't I don't see. You don't, when you look at where the pain is. I don't mean focus on the pain. No, that's not what I meant. What I meant was sometimes if you want to know where to start with your own inner work, you can start with whatever's giving you the most heartbreak. That's where your karmic account is showing up. So if debt is giving you, if your financial situation is your crisis, start there. And remember to apply the karmic principle. So ironically, if you're feeling out of money, what should you do? What's the karmically right thing to do if you're feeling a little broke? Give money away. Put it out there. If you're feeling friendless, what should you do? Be a friend. Don't sit around waiting for the phone to ring, right? So look at the area where you have the greatest tension or the greatest sorrow and realize all that is the soul giving the signal that it's fallen out of alignment with the true self. And that's where you put your loving attention. Don't think about your pain. That's not what I'm saying. Don't sit there and concentrate on how much you hurt, but bring your loving attention to that. Bring your elevated attention to that. Bring your meditation to that. Natasha, what if your own ego creates the negative self talk? Is your ego a karmic account? Well, your ego is creating a karmic account. So your ego is just your false self, right? As opposed to your true self. So your little false self is out there creating negative self talk. So you have to get in touch with your true self. And that's what you do in your meditation, right? The soul is your true self. And the soul in its original form is the true self. So all of your meditation practice with Raj Yoga starts in the same place. Consider yourself to be a soul. Stabilize in your awareness that you are the light behind the eyes. Completely beautiful, precious, virtuous, kind, compassionate, etc. Locate yourself there and quiet yourself down and strengthen yourself there. Do you want to do a little meditation? Okay, good.
Sister, is it okay? There is just one more which I think was coming in, which says that if you are not acting, can we lose positive karma if we don't act?
If we don't act, can we lose positive karma? Is that the question?
Yes, because we mentioned that karma means action. So, is it necessary to act? Is probably the question.
Is it necessary to act? Well, okay. So the karmic accounts are created through action, but a lot happens through thought, right? Because that's how your vibrations are created. Action comes from the field of thought. So I'm not sure I understand the question, but you would start with creating the most powerful, positive, or elevated thought that you can. If you open your mouth and speak from that place, you are creating a positive account. If you stand up and go help someone from that place, you are creating a positive account. Is that what the question means? I'm still not sure I'm tracking completely.
Are you going to close the?
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
I think so. It is clear. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I see one more question here. How do you explain a pure soul with negative karma? Jesus, that is such a good and big question. Um, I can give you an answer that will probably open more questions than it answers. But it is our understanding that the Jesus soul was the one who held the Christ soul, so that the Christ soul came in from the soul world in perfection. The Jesus soul was the one who had been in the world, and that the Christ soul worked through the Jesus soul. And that actually that's true with all of the founders of religions, right? The Buddhist soul worked through the Siddhartha soul, et cetera, et cetera. That's a conversation for another Thursday night, which I'm happy to talk with you about. Okay, are we okay? Thank you for the wedding card. Okay.
I think you addressed how do we get out of the negative thoughts loop
Yeah,
already.
I
So,
think I
yeah.
did. Okay. So I hope you're not just confused at a more elevated level. I hope that you actually have a feeling for what we're talking about. It's a very big subject. And I think what's most important is that you're here. What's most important is that your spiritual life is at the center of your life. I'm going to hope. I would just leave you with one thought, and that is that you have to have a daily practice right now. If you're only meditating sometimes, it's not enough. You can't just meditate when you're having a good day, or even more probable when you're having a bad day. You know, it tends to be that we think, well, we don't need meditation, everything's going okay. Then suddenly something bad happens, oh my God, and you run over and you sit on your cushion, right? It can't be that way, because you don't know when the phone's going to ring and it's the doctor with a bad diagnosis, or it's someone in your family with bad news or whatever. And we all have those stories. You will not be ready for those phone calls if you don't meditate every day. I cannot stress this enough. The difference between going from an occasional meditation practice to a daily practice is night and day. It would change you completely. So the one thing I would leave you with, and however you'd best do it, I like to meditate at 3:30 in the morning. That may not be your best time. You might like to meditate at night. Whenever you do it, I do morning and night. Morning because the vibe is so pure and good. Evening because it lets me finish the day. But honestly, I have to tell you that it will make a big difference if you're not already doing that. So let's close with just a little bit of meditation together. So sit comfortably. Have your feet either under you or on the floor. If you'd like to keep your eyes, we keep our eyes open, but you may find that completely distracting. And if you do, don't do that. But Om Shanti. So it's been lovely to be with you. Let's come together again soon. Have a beautiful weekend. Om Shanti.
Thank you, Sister Judy, for such a lovely meditation. And of course, we all are much more acquainted with what karma means and also how to deal with situations because we are dealing with this topic every day. Um, so, thank you very much. And for those of you who are not aware, we have a talk every Thursday with the same Zoom link, same ID, with newer topics. And the topic for next week is happiness and family life. So most welcome to join again. And we will also have Sister Judy very soon again for another topic. Thank you all and have a good evening.
Shanti.